Things that we do, the things we enjoy. We're an economic driver, an employer, and we add so much to Chattanooga. When they say that we're a great place to live, work, and play, we're the ones doing that. So we deserve a big pat on the back. And we deserve the continued funding, the continued advocacy. And so that's what we're here about today. So we're going to hear from Arts Vote, the Arts Action Fund for Americans for the Arts. Marcus is going to talk to us after that about some of our local arts advocacy efforts and a timeline that we've kind of been brainstorming. Tyler is here from the mayor's office to talk to us about the 2020 census and why it's so critical that the arts sector be counted. And then we have at the end, Tim from CoLab is going to log on or speak up and tell us about Startup Week, which is happening very soon, and how the arts sector can become part of that. So I'm going to turn it over to Miriam so that she can introduce our special guest today. And as we move through the slides, just prompt me and I will do my best to do my job from here on out. So thank you all. Good to see everybody.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. So yeah, we're gonna get started. We have a special guest this morning who's joining us all the way from Washington, D.C. Thank you, Nina. I'm not gonna try and pronounce your name because I feel like I'm gonna butcher it, but I'll let you pronounce it. And Nina is the executive.
Nina Oslu.
Thank you. Thank you. And she is the executive director of the Arts Action Fund, as James mentioned. And she's going to talk to us about the Arts Vote campaign. So Nina, I'm going to let you take the floor, and thank you.
Okay, James, let's advance this slide. Okay, so it's a great pleasure to come to you in Chattanooga. As Miriam mentioned, I am Nina Oslu. I'm the executive director of the Americans for the Arts Action Fund. I actually wear a second hat. I'm also the chief counsel at Americans for the Arts. There are a lot of topics that I come in and do Zoom things about, everything from CARES Act to advocacy, but today we're going to be talking about Arts Vote. This is a campaign that we launch. Well, it's actually a biennial campaign, but this year it has a little extra oomph because we partnered with the renowned artist Shepard Fairey to create the artwork that you're looking at, the first artwork that we started the webinar with. And it is a nonpartisan, non-electoral, purely educational campaign to get the vote out. And more specifically, what the angle that we're focusing on, that we've been focusing on actually since the onset of COVID, is that the importance of mail-in balloting, voting early if you can, not relying on the post office to get something to your election county electoral offices in time, because anything can go wrong. So really, what you're going to hear about from us is really doing every component that you possibly can on the early side, and not leaving things to the last minute so that you can make your vote count. And the reason why we focus on making your vote count is because there are so many loopholes and legislative restrictions that can curtail someone's vote being counted. Everything from your signature on a ballot not matching the signature that you registered with, and that would be for an absentee ballot, not coming in time, going to the wrong polling place, things like that. So give yourself enough time to possibly make a mistake so that you can correct it in time to make sure that your vote is counted. So a little bit about the campaign is that it's a national campaign in all 50 states and 6 territories. And what we've done is developed a pledge for people to vote. And all you're doing with this pledge is that you are saying that you are going to agree to do all these early items at each interval. And Thank you for clicking on the pledge. So here, I'm just going to read it out loud. As an arts advocate, I want to join the Arts Vote movement to educate and encourage all artists and arts advocates to make their vote count. So it's not just about yourself, it's also about engaging all your network of colleagues to also make their vote count by taking action early. State election rules and deadlines have completely changed this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I will not allow my vote to be suppressed because I will register to vote or check the status of my current registration. I'm going to request a mail-in ballot when available and cast my vote and celebrate my vote so others do the same. And then it just asks for your basic contact information, which will then, after you fill that out, very simple form, you will be led to, and we can go back, you'll be led to a gallery of variations of sizes and shapes of Shepard Fairey's artwork. And I can tell you, I'm going to give you a shortcut for that one. If you go to the URL up top where it says Arts Vote, just take out the words Arts Vote and type in Shepard Fairey. I believe there's an EY at the end. That should do it. And then go ahead and hit it. There's something, oh, there's a Shepard is in ARD, H-A-R-D.
There's no H either. It's just
Oh, yeah.
S-H-E-P-A-R-D.
There you go. There we go. So you can see I'm using the Zoom backdrop. It's available in English and in Spanish. There are Instagram sizes, and it's still loading, so that's why, but they're all load right now. Facebook and Twitter sizes, profile circles. It's really quite a rich variety, and they're available to anybody who pledges to make their vote count this year. So we can go back to our slide. And then the most important thing it will also lead you to is the voter fact sheet for Tennessee. And I'm sure that there are people on the call that even have more details about this, but go ahead and click the one on the left. And you'll see what's, before you click, oh, okay, we'll just go through it then. And 1 second while I clear my screen so I don't. Okay. There, thank you. Someone got rid of that little window there. Okay, so we have done the research for every state and all 6 territories to determine what are the 4 steps that you need to make your vote count. Now, I know that there are websites out there that might give you kind of simple dates, or they might give you links. This actually takes it in a very logical, comfortable sequence in terms of what you need to do and the timing that we'd love to see you do it by. So in step 1, where if you haven't registered to vote, and I'm sure all of you have registered. So on step 1, your choice is either you register to vote or you check online for the accuracy of your existing registration. And we're hoping that you do it. It says you should do it by October 5th for registration, but we want everyone to do it. Well, we were asking people to do it at the end of August, but anytime in September is also good because the deadline is October 5th. And that's very important because you're not going to be able to vote otherwise if you don't do this kind of pre-planning work. And then the second step is that if your state allows you to be eligible to vote by mail, also called absentee ballots. We give the information that's unique to your state. Now, in your state, you don't allow no excuse absentee voting. And what that means is the only things that would allow someone to take a absentee ballot is for health reasons. And I just learned a few minutes ago that having any kind of underlying conditions that might make you susceptible to a health problem that could expose you maybe to COVID-19, by having that pre-existing condition would allow you to be able to request an absentee ballot for the general election this coming November 3rd. But you need to also do that in advance as well. But the fact that it's just COVID-19 and you're concerned about going to the polling stations because you don't want to vote, without that underlying condition, you won't be able to request an absentee ballot and you have to go in person to vote. So here we provide the unique links for Tennessee on the qualification, those exact qualifications. And then also we're asking that you make that, the requests have to be received by, and this is another little technicality that people can get confused by. Received by is not the same thing as postmarked by. Received by means you had to have requested that, especially if you do it by mail, requesting a ballot by mail. You have to do it way before October 27th. So it's received in their hands by October 27th, or you can do it online. But we're asking everybody, don't delay and if you think that you fall into one of these qualifications to allow for an absentee ballot, don't delay, do it by September 30th. And then step 3 is actually making your vote, casting your vote so it actually counts. And so here you have 3 choices. For the person who qualified for an absentee ballot, that also has to be received by election day. You don't mail it election day, it has to be received, and it has to be received at the specific local county election office. And that link that we provide will allow you to connect your zip code to the right county election office with the mailing address that it needs to go to. But because you can request your ballots early, you're looking at really, we're asking everyone to do it absolutely no later of having it mailed in October 20th. So there's time for the post office to really process it and for your county election office to receive it. If you do not qualify as someone who can get an absentee ballot, then you have a choice of voting early in person. You don't have to wait till November 3rd to vote. And you will need to, again, follow that link to find out exactly where you would need to vote to be able to vote early. And the dates that you can vote early begin Wednesday, October 14th, and go until Thursday, October 29th, a few days before the election. So you can't vote early right up until the day of the election. It ends on the 29th. So it's really about planning ahead and thinking about when your windows of opportunity are to make that happen. But of course, we don't want to wait to the last minute for everyone to vote, especially here. So we're saying, do it in advance, do it at least 2 weeks in advance. So we're recommending everybody, if you're gonna early vote, do it by October 20th. But if you are someone who can only do it on November 3rd, and that's the way it works, remember, you can't register the same day. You have to have registered in advance. And you need to go in person in this place. And this time, it's not to just any county election, your specific county election office. It's got to be to the polling place that your address is associated with. And that's why there's a separate link for that polling station. Polling, and you're able to vote until 7 p.m. But we say, don't wait until evening after work to vote. Wake up early that day and go in the morning to be able to vote. And then finally, once you've done all that, especially those who have done it on the early side, you have a chance to still influence your network of friends. And we want you to post a selfie of yourself, post one of the Shepherd Ferry artworks, post you being at the polling station. Oh, and I'm getting an update. In certain counties, it's until 8 p.m. So when you go to that polling place link, it will tell you which county is open until what time. But we're putting, if one county opens, and that was just from the chat room, if one county closes at 7 p.m. for a statewide fact sheet, we're going to put the earlier one instead of the later one so that people go on the early side. That's a deliberate thing that we're doing there, not an oversight. So in terms of that last step, we want you to publicize the fact that you have taken these steps, whether it's, hey, today I requested my absentee ballot. Does everyone know that if you're going to do it, you need a medical reason, but we have to do it by October 27th. Here's the link. Publicize every one of these 3 steps. I just checked my current registration. It's so easy to do. Go to this link. You can do it too. But you got to do it by the registration date, which was earlier in October, on October 5th. So that publicity is going to create a viral effect, so that it's going to put a thought in the friends who follow you and who are in your network to say, oh my God, is that today? Oh my God, I got to start thinking about when I'm going to do this, all that kind of thing. You can send them to our Arts Vote page for them to find it too. Now, if you represent an organization, and we can exit from here and go back to the slide. Yeah. So let's look at that middle slide right there, pledge to vote early, the Chattanooga one. So, oh, we don't have to open it. Sorry, let's just go back to it. So one of the fun things that we've created for this campaign is a way for organizations to help promote this. At the top of my message, I said this is a purely educational campaign. Even though we're encouraging people to vote, it is not what we would call an electoral, political, partisan effort. It's just getting people to do their constitutional rights and follow through on that. So 501c3 charities do not have to worry about participating in a campaign like this. You don't have to worry about promoting voting and education on what the voting steps are on your website, in your communications, in your emails and texts and meetings. So what we've done is we've created a very nice way for organizations to also kind of get involved with this. So here you'll see you have the, in this middle slide right here, you have the state of Tennessee with a little heart for where Chattanooga is. And for any organization that wants to partner, and their pledge is to promote voting this year and Arts Vote. If we will add their logo to here, and you can use not only the Shepherd Ferry artwork, but you can use these branded state voting maps that we've created to add your logo on it. Put it on your website, put it on your social media platforms, and we encourage you to link that map to either, depending on what you're interested in doing. You either link it to that state fact sheet of 4 steps that I just walked you through, or you just link it to the Arts Vote landing page. And James, if you could click on the one above it, Arts, yeah. And this is, so what we tell people is do both. And I saw that on Arts Build's website, that's exactly what they did. They have the Shepherd Ferry artwork, and that links to this whole page of all kinds of things that you can do. We even have an Arts Vote store to get all kinds of merchandise, events and things like that. And then use your state map to link directly to the 4 steps so that you can really educate people about things. So if you're interested in getting a branded graphic, James, if you could scroll down on this Arts Vote page here and go to About Arts Vote, I think that's where it is. And scroll down a little bit. Okay, right there. So right above it, yeah, it's I should make it a little bit stronger, but here is the whole background on encouraging organizations to become a partner, what the steps are, and then it will lead you to a, yes, I want to participate. And you can see it's a nationwide effort, everything. We also have national organizations participating. If you could scroll down a little bit further, you see, yes, I want to participate. That's going to take you to a Google form where it's going to give us your, you're going to give us your information. And if you could scroll down, and it's going to keep going right here, add a file. You're going to be able to upload a JPEG or PNG of your logo. We prefer a translucent background, but we can work with anything you got. And it tells you the instructions on how, what steps you would need to take from there. It's pretty easy. So if all else fails, I've posted my email address in the chat room. I can always send you links later, but that is the way you would do it. And I'm very happy to say that we already have 4 collaborating organizations, 3 of them in Chattanooga, 1 in Knoxville, participating in the campaign. It just launched about 10 days ago. So the organizational participation is gaining lots of speed right now. And we encourage as many groups of all disciplines to engage in this. So I'm going to leave a little time for questions.
Thank you, Nina. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat or just speak them out.
And also add that we'll be sharing all of this information afterwards as well.
Okay.
Nina, share a little, just briefly about what Arts Action Fund has been doing nationally as far as both the Democratic Convention and the Republican Convention and other things.
Okay. Sure. So typically in a non-COVID year, we would have actually gone to the Republican Convention and the Democratic Convention. We would have held panels there on the importance of arts, economic impact numbers. You can see from Shepard Fairey's artwork, our slogans are, not slogans, but our concepts are creative freedom, creative community, creative jobs, creative economy. And we would hold panels around these kinds of concepts in both the Republican and Democratic conventions involving delegates. We would host a lot of kind of social networking events with delegates and key people within the convention. But this year, as everything, we've gone virtual. And so we, on the closing night of the Democratic Convention, we held a panel on Arts Vote. And we had Annette Benning, Brian Stokes-Mitchell, Ben Folds is the chair of Arts Vote, the famous musician who I'm sure you guys know in Tennessee. He's an old Nashville boy. So we had that meeting, and then it was a very nice virtual event. And then we also had one on the closing night of the Republican Convention. And that one focused on the impact that COVID-19 has had on arts organization, both as an economic impact, but how it's also impacting communities by not having live performances and things like that, but also the resiliency of arts organizations to still find a way to serve their community during COVID-19. And with that, we had the chairwoman of the National Endowment for the Arts, who is a Trump appointee. Again, we had Annette Benning, we had a great, the person who represents Arts Midwest. He's really terrific. And so that's what we do during the conventions. But we're engaging throughout the year. One of the next things that Arts Vote will be doing that is not related to our educational Make Your Vote Count campaign, but does kind of have a little bit of a stronger political side to it, is we'll be releasing a Congressional Arts Report Card so that people will have a understanding of those incumbents who are running for re-election, how they scored in terms of their support for the arts while they were in Congress for the last 2 years. It's a biennial report card. And so that will probably come out at the end of September, early October. And that's more of the congressional side of things.
And you can join the Arts Action Fund? Anybody can join that, right?
Yes, guess what? It's free. So, and the other nice thing is if you take the pledge to vote, you automatically become a free member of the Arts Action Fund. You don't have to do a separate sign up. But if you just separately sign up, you will become a free Arts Action Fund member. And if you already are a member, and you take the pledge, will extend your membership another year. It is a yearly membership, and that's something that's just required to make sure that people who want to be a member are members. So you kind of recertify every year.
And the link to join was just placed into the chat box. So thank you. And Nina, I know you have to go because you have appointments at 11, but we appreciate you for spending the morning with us and bringing us up to speed on Arts Vote.
Thank you so much. And thank you guys for getting so involved so early, the early groups that became partners with us. I appreciate it.
Well, you know, we're not called the volunteer state for nothing. So
Yeah.
we're going to be all on board. So thank you.
Thank you.
All
Okay.
right.
Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Bye. Thank you. So next, Marcus is just going to give us a couple of sentences about arts advocacy locally and some things that are being planned for local campaigns. And I'll turn it over to Marcus. I think you're on mute, Marcus. No, you know what? You know, we can move on.
How about now?
We can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Okay, sorry, the headphones aren't working. Okay, so Arts Forward and Arts Build, specifically me, James, and Monica Kinsey, have been kind of brainstorming a plan for us to do some local advocacy with the elections that are coming up in March locally. Sure, a lot of you heard about mayoral candidates announcing, and we're still waiting for a full roster. The deadline for the candidates to qualify is actually December 17th. So we're waiting until after that deadline to really roll out our action plan on this. Over the next couple of months, we're going to put together a survey that we'll send out to all the candidates on December 21st. That survey will include questions about their perspectives on various policies and needs in the arts community. And we will be reaching out to our community at large to help kind of do like a needs assessment to figure out what the main concerns of our arts community are here locally. And then after that survey goes out, we'll be sharing the results the week of January 1, so right after the new year. And following that, once that's been published very broadly and publicly, we're going to be scheduling a town hall with the candidates the week of February 1. And we will be inviting all of the candidates, no matter how many they are. We want to have a chance for all of them to be heard and to be asked questions by the public. And we want to remind people that the election for locally is on March 2nd. So we'll also be encouraging people, much like Arts Vote is encouraging folks right now nationally, to make sure to vote in the local election on or before March 2nd.
Thank you, Marcus. And I know you'll keep us updated on that as we move forward. So our next guest is Mr. Tyler Young from Mayor Burke's office, and he's going to talk to us about Census 2020 and why it's important for the arts sector to be involved.
Well, thanks for having me, James, and welcome everybody. We have an important deadline coming up with the 2020 census, and so I have some information to talk to you about why it's important to Chattanooga. We have a complete count committee that's been working for over a year now to try to ensure we have a complete count here in Chattanooga. Next slide. So the census is a lot more than counting who's in our community. When we do the census, the most important thing for kind of our day-to-day lives is it determines our federal funding for pretty much everything. Our proportion of federal funding is based on our count. And for every person that doesn't get counted, we lose $1,091 of federal funds per year, about 11 grand until 2030. And in addition to that, it also gets us power, right? The more people that we count, the more representation we get in government. And so we don't want to undercount folks because that means less power and less representation for them. And the offices that are apportioned by that, like the House of Representatives, the Tennessee House of Representatives, and so on. Next slide. Lots of people use census data for important decisions that affect us and affect you as an arts community. Businesses use Census Bureau data to determine where they're going to open up shop. As a local government, we use census data on pretty much all of our planning efforts on where we're going to put public transit lines and roads and new schools and hospitals. We also draw our city council districts based off of the census data. Many of you have probably used census data in your grant applications. It helps you better understand your community and their needs. And then activists and neighborhoods can use census data to advocate for what they need in their neighborhood. Next slide. Specifically for the arts, all of the federal, state grants, grants that come from National Endowment for the Arts, there are usually arts and cultural grant programs in every federal department. And all of the amount of grants that come into Chattanooga are determined by our census count. The CARES Act funding that we got, the formula for how much of that funding we got was based off of our census count in 2010. And usually the folks that are undercounted are the communities that need those federal grant dollars the most. It's the place where we do work to make sure that everybody has access to the arts. And the other thing is that it also determines kind of the shift in balance of power for historically undercounted communities that get counted more. They're going to get more representation in at all levels of government. And we want to make sure that the folks in the communities that we serve get counted so that we can elect people that support the arts and culture. Next slide. So I wanted to give you an update on how we're doing so far. Originally, the census was scheduled to end in July, and now it's been extended due to COVID. So you can see here our response rates. So NRFU is non-response follow-up. That's when census workers go door to door. Prior to when census workers were out in our community, we had 58.3% of people in Chattanooga self-responding, meaning they went online, they submitted a form in the mail, they called, they completed their census. More recently, we're at 60%, and a lot of that is due to census workers who are out in the community knocking on doors. You can see in 2010, we got up to 66%. And so we have 26 days left until the end of this count. The period was recently moved up by the White House to September 30th instead of the original timeline of October 31st, which basically just means it's less time for those census workers to go out and follow up with people who haven't responded. And so what we can do is make sure that people self-respond and that they talk to census workers when they come to their homes. Next slide. This is a heat map that kind of shows you the self-response rates. You can see the places that have some of the lower response rates are least counted census tract right now is at 30% self-response rate. So those people, we want to make sure that they're counted, and we want to make sure that their voices are heard. Next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit about who gets undercounted. So an undercount is when fewer people that actually live here are recorded in the final census count. For instance, our 2010 census said that 6% of our city population or county population is Hispanic or Latino, but we know that there are probably a lot more than that in our community. So if those communities don't get counted, they lose power. Next slide. And here are some of the barriers that make people hard to count. Hard to interview, folks that speak different languages, have low literacy and can't read the forms, don't have internet access because the census is online for the first time ever. People who are hard to locate, they might move around between households. They might be experiencing housing instability or couch surfing or homeless. People who are hard to contact. They might have physical access barriers to where they live. And then people who are hard to persuade, people who are suspicious of giving the government any information and typically don't want to respond to things like this. Next slide. And when you look at the types of folks that get undercounted, young children are a big one. Children 0 to 5 usually are likely to not get counted on their household census form because caretakers can vary and things like that. Homeless folks, racial and ethnic minority groups, non-English speakers, low-income people, undocumented immigrants, people who distrust government, LGBTQ people, people with disabilities, people who don't live in traditional housing. And when you look at this group, this is a lot of the group that we try to serve and give access to arts and culture as well, right? Next slide. So we currently have 72,000 households in Chattanooga that have not yet responded, and census workers are out in our community knocking on their door, trying to get them to complete the census. Because of COVID, there's been a shortage of census workers, and because of the deadline change moving up 1 month, there's more work for less workers to do. So we can solve this problem by recruiting more people to work for the census in these final days, and also encouraging everybody in our networks to self-respond, just like we would voting and other things like that. Next slide. So here's what we can do to try to get this response rate up. Next slide. There's 3 ways that you can respond right now. Online is the easiest way and the quickest way. 2020census.gov is the website to go there. For folks who don't have access to internet or who have language barriers, usually the easiest way is for them to call. They can talk to a Census Bureau worker over the phone and complete their census over the phone. 844-330-2020 is the English speaking line, and at 2020census.gov you can see there are I think 15 different language lines that they can use, and even more languages available online for people to translate the form. And last is for people to open the door and talk to census takers who are visiting their home. Next slide. So this is what you will see Census Bureau workers look like in our community. They have a bag that has the Census Bureau label on it. They have some type of a device that has a Census Bureau label on it. And all of them should have a government ID badge that identifies them as a Census Bureau employee. If you're unsure whether the person is from the Census Bureau, you can always get their name, and there's a website link here in the presentation where you can type in their name and make sure that they work for the Census Bureau. But it's important that we help people understand that these aren't just random people showing up to their home. They're here to help you complete the census, and the census is very important, and underscore some of these reasons I've talked about why. Next slide. Another important thing to share with people, especially folks who are skeptical of giving the government their information, is that there's particular confidentiality to census information. Your census response can't be shared with any government agency outside of the Census Bureau. For anybody who discloses those that information, it's a felony, and you can face a minimum 10-year jail sentence in the federal prison. And all of the Census Bureau workers take a lifetime oath to not disclose any of that. Once you submit your responses are disconnected from your name or any identifiable information, and it's just statistics. Same thing with online. As soon as you click that submit button, the data is encrypted several different times and removed from your personally identifiable information, so that if that system gets hacked, somebody can't put the pieces back together again and identify who you are. It's important to let people know that these protections are in place because with talk of the citizenship question that did not get included on the census, many immigrants and new Americans are afraid to participate in the census. And many people in low-income communities already have a history of the government misusing this information and using it to hurt them. And so we have some trust to try to build to participate in the census. Next slide. I mentioned working for the census. They're still hiring every day. And so I know Miriam is an enumerator for the census. It's temporary work. You can work as much or as little as you want. They have bonuses for the number of people that you count, so you can get paid extra if you work extra. The only requirement is that you're at least 18 years old and you have a social security number. One thing to note is that the application process is entirely online. And so people will have to apply through 2020census.gov/jobs, but there is a phone assistance line that I included here for people who may need help through that process. The census is even allowing non-citizens to work where there's area for high demand of people that speak different languages. And you're usually assigned to your home zip code, but you can take assignments, wherever you want. Next slide. So to finish us out here, here's kind of a list of things that you can do right now before September 30th. One is we have a text program. You can text CHA Census to the number 97779 and tell others to do the same. That gives them some educational facts about why the census is important and sends them information about how to participate. We can also answer people's questions through that text line. Also, if you haven't participated in the census yet, make sure that you get yourself counted and your family and your household. And then after you get yourself counted, text 5 friends and ask them if they've taken the census yet. Tell them about how easy it is. Tell them about how important it is for you and other things. And then you can also post reminders on social media. We have several different toolkits that have kind of ready-made graphics and responses. You can also kind of make your own message. We want to post these messages. How to identify a census worker and making sure that you answer your door for a census worker, letting people know these people are out in their community. You can self-respond online and it will avoid somebody knocking at your door and you having to answer your door, which a lot of people don't like or want. Remind them the deadline is September 30th to get counted, and think about why it's important to you as an artist, as a community member, as a neighbor, as a parent, whatever. Why is the census important to you? Why did you choose to get counted? And share that with other people and it'll inspire them to do the same. And then you can, if you're looking for extra work, I know many artists are having problems finding work right now in this environment. I would encourage you to try to take some time and get some extra pay and work on the census. Not only will it help you, it'll help our entire community. And you would be a civic hero, if you will. On the final slide, I've included my contact information if you want to get a hold of me, talk about future things that you might want to do. And then I included the link to our census page where you can get resources, printable outreach materials. You can learn more about some of the local efforts going on for the census. So with that, I'm done and I'm ready to answer questions if anybody has questions.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to add one thing because I am actually out there enumerating. It has been great because I've been working in the community and getting to meet my neighbors, and it's been a really great experience. But we are actually moving on from Chattanooga, and they're sending us out to different parts of the county.
Hi, Tyler. I do have a question actually in regard to the city and this complete count committee. Is there any type of artistic campaign that is going out there to get the message out? I'm just wondering, have you tried, or is there an infusion of working with the local artists from the standpoint from the city to make sure that the word gets out, and especially for communities of color, because when you speak about the whole trust factor, I'm just wondering, what does that look like? Has there been an effort on, from the city standpoint? I know that with your neighborhood roots, for example, is there any funding or any opportunities for folks to go out there to be able to create campaigns ASAP prior for September 30th to really reach out to the underserved and undercounted?
Yeah, Shane, I'm happy to answer that. In terms of involving local artists and things like that, we haven't done that, and I'll just be honest that we haven't. We have successfully gotten grant funds from the state and from National League of Cities, and we're using that on several different efforts. One is that we've tapped in kind of the national, arts and creatives that have built some different graphics. We've run different social media campaigns that were targeted specifically for African Americans and Latinx folks, and messaging and images and ads that spoke to them. We also, put together a Spanish radio ad that the Census had produced, and ran that on Spanish radio, since they had not purchased ad time there. We have bilingual ads on buses that have run for a couple of months now in some of the undercounted areas. And then we've also been doing some in-person outreach as well. So we've worked with the National Panhellenic Council to do some door knocking and door hangers in lots of our undercounted areas. They're bilingual, and so they remind people in English and Spanish and talk about how they can get counted. And then we've also been doing some efforts with La Paz, where whenever they do food drives, COVID testing and things like that, we have a separate station for people to talk to a La Paz worker and complete the census in their native language, and have somebody that can help them there that they trust, which has been helpful. We've been able to count 150 households through some of those efforts when they're getting, picking up food and things. So we have been trying to specifically reach into undercounted communities and put resources and funding behind that. And I think now it's all of us doing all of it. We have some remaining grant funds available. We're going to try to put those into, continuing to do Latinx outreach specifically, since that's one of our most undercounted groups right now, with La Paz, and then perhaps some texting stuff where we can, we have available some mobile numbers so that we can text people directly, which hopefully will reach them in a different way other than social media and things like that.
Well, thank you so much, Tyler. And to speak to Shane's point, I think it does help to have people out there that look like you. I've definitely encountered that people are more trusting when they see someone that looks like you. All right.
I had a question for Tyler. The 72,000 households that have not been counted locally, that was in Chattanooga or Hamilton County?
That was in Chattanooga. Yeah. And so basically what happens, you can see like the 2010 response rate was 66%. And so what they do is for the households who did get counted in that census tract, they use that as kind of a sample and they model it out for how many people live in that community, which usually means that when people of color, people that typically get undercounted in those census tracts, that they're not going to get included in that modeling out, if you will, which is why we undercount Latinos and folks like that.
All right. I think if anyone doesn't have any other questions, we're going to move on to our next speaker, which is Tim Moore, who is the program manager at the CoLab. And he's going to be talking to us about the programs and resources that they offer that would be of interest to the arts community. And he's also going to talk about their upcoming startup week. So Tim, if you'll take over.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, James and Miriam. As Miriam said, I am a program manager at CoLab, and just to give you a little bit high level about CoLab, we are a nonprofit located just down the road from Arts Build on 11th Street, and we're really dedicated to supporting entrepreneurship in Chattanooga and kind of the greater Chattanooga region. And James, Miriam, I just sent a link for this startup week. Thanks for pulling that up. A little bit about CoLab and more of the sort of programs we have. I think there's sometimes a perception in the community that we are all tech focused, that we support tech startups, but that is actually far from the case. Some of you who are maybe around in the Create Here days remember Springboard, which was really kind of a pillar of what CoLab became. And Springboard was really developed to help artists be able to conceptualize business models from their actual talents in the arts. So that's really where a lot of our roots are in. We also have a accelerator focus on supporting food and beverage companies locally, as well as we work with companies across the Southeast, and we partner with the people over at the New Proof Incubator to do that program. I'll jump into Startup Week. So Startup Week started in 2014. And so we're looking at, before I was getting on to speak, I was like counting, like, how many are there? I believe this will be our 7th annual Startup Week. And so started in 2014, kind of as a lot of organizations in the business community really wanted to showcase all that our business community had to offer. So I was actually an intern on the first Startup Week committee, and that first year really blew away our expectations as far as response for people who wanted to host events during Startup Week or people who wanted to attend Startup Week. And it's really grown every year. And, a huge sort of piece of feedback we get from organizers and attendees and event hosts every year is that really this is going beyond this just sort of term startup, and really seems to be a great opportunity to showcase all that Chattanooga has to offer. And I very much believe that our arts community is an incredibly critical element of what Chattanooga can offer to the community. So, this, like many others, we're going into this year and it's going to be fully virtual. And like many of you who have been organizing events these last few months, you're trying to figure out how to create the most engaging and rewarding experience in a virtual environment. And for those of you who have been doing that, I empathize with you, because it's something we've really been wrestling with a lot. But I think we have some great thought leadership kind of helping us think about how can we really maximize this to ultimately benefit the community. So I mentioned earlier, I just want to make sure it's emphasized that while CoLab, we act as sort of a host organizer to make sure that everything gets done that needs to get done so that we can actually have the event. The vast majority of events themselves are hosted by different community organizations and individuals as well. And so this year's event will be October 19th through 23rd. We're anticipating probably anywhere from 70 to 100 events happening. Of course, we'll all be virtual. And, when I say that it's really kind of been bigger than this term startup in our business community, really there are events for everyone. This year, we're kind of still going through applications, but this year, the biggest sort of density of event topic has actually been more around mental health and wellness, especially as important as that is with these very challenging, unprecedented times that we're facing, as well as resiliency to push through these times. So I think that there's plenty of content that will very much appeal to everyone in our community. The great thing is that some of the feedback we've gotten, like I said, about getting more of our arts community plugged into this. Right now, we're working with the owners over at the new Yellow Racket Records and with Dynamo Studios about doing some evening shows during Startup Week that will, of course, be virtual. We have some poetry events already that have been submitted, a couple of like more filmmaking related events. And so while our application did technically close just last week, I believe, there's still, honestly, as far as the arts community goes, I would love to talk to anyone who would be interested in hosting your own event or connecting me with someone who'd be interested. I mean, we've had in the past events with Erica Roberts doing kind of a poetry slam event. Josiah from the 800 Collective has done some more interactive events. Of course, those were in person, but anything interactive, educational whatever ideas you may have around ways to really plug in more arts events into this year's Startup Week, I would love that. With it being virtual, that has its own challenges, but also maybe its own opportunities. So, I just wanted to get on here and let everyone know that this event is definitely happening this year, one way or another. We're looking to launch sort of the schedule out to the public the week of September 14th, so coming up here in a couple of weeks. And then beyond that, it's just going to be more planning and promoting it out into the community. But we always seem to get a really great response from people from every corner of our community. And so we'd always appreciate any organizations who have social channels to share this through your own networks. Always appreciate that as well. And so I think I'm going to just double check I wrote down a couple of bullet points, but, I think that, at the whole kind of covers Startup Week. One thing I'd also like to mention, and I'm sure, James, you won't mind me mentioning this at all, is we actually host a funding sort of platform called Kiva here at CoLab. And James has been actually a huge proponent and a major reason of why we were able to bring this program here to Chattanooga. Now, Kiva is essentially a crowdfunding platform that acts more as like microloans. And you can find these sorts of lending opportunities all around the world. When I say we brought this program here to Chattanooga, oh, did you already have a presentation? I don't need to copy it. Okay, that's okay. Well, I was just going to mention, just recently, we actually had someone raise $3,000 who was a stained glass artist to be able to fund her studio needs and be able to complete a project for a client. So because you had Kiva, I won't go into that, but it was just an interesting use case of how you could use this platform from an artist perspective.
No, and I didn't mean for you to stop. I just wanted you to know we did have a full presentation about it a few weeks ago. I love this information about Startup Week. And what I would say is, you don't have to do a new activity. A lot of times you already have an event planned that's going to happen during that time. If you add it to the Startup Week calendar, you're really introducing your organization, yourself, and what you do to an entire new network of people, and new funders, new patrons, and everything else. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to share and happy to answer any questions. I know that I don't know if this ends at 11:30 or not, but I'll drop my email here in the chat. If you have any ideas about ways we can ultimately make this a better event, or you just want more information, please feel free to reach out. For the next 2 months, I'm living and breathing Startup Week, so I'm here for it.
How many people typically participate in Startup Week?
That's a great question. I think as far as like unique attendees, we usually see around 3,000 to 4,000. We have people come from, the community who maybe haven't really engaged with resources as far as business support goes. We have people who want to come and learn about that. We have people who may have been connected with the business community who come. And then we also see people attend from outside of the region as well. And I think that may be even more of an opportunity with it being virtual this year. Yeah,
That's great. Thank you so much, Tim. And yeah, I'll share your information and links to Startup Week as a follow-up. And also just one quick announcement before we end. So we did send this invite out earlier through our a different email account. So it might have gone to your spam mail. So just for future reference, it is being sent out through Constant Contact just in case you don't miss the next one. All right, if we don't have any other questions, we'll thank everyone for joining us today, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.